7 Action News is bringing you in-depth coverage of all the candidates trying to win your vote this election.
The race for the 11th Congressional District was split wide open after incumbent Thaddeus McCotter left in scandal. Well, now Kerry Bentivolio tells 7 Action News reporter Smitha Kaloki why he should be sent to Washington.
Kerry Bentivolio says he spent his life doing two things, living in Michigan and serving his community.
So it's always been community service for me. It kind of runs in the family.
After high school, Bentivolio enlisted in the Army, serving as an infantry rifleman in Vietnam. The war veteran grew up in a patriotic neighborhood and knew what he had to do. But when he returned, he enrolled in college.
Well, that's where I met my wife. She was my college sweetheart, and went to work in the automotive industry, worked there for about 20 years. Had a brief stint in the building business, then became a school teacher in both private and public school.
During those 20 years in the auto industry, Bentivolio worked as an automotive designer, eventually working his way up to project manager despite not having an engineering degree. But those 2 decades would later bring him to the classroom, where he taught vocational education, American literature, and American history. It was his students who asked a basic question that led to his candidacy.
My students said, "Well, why don't you run for office, Mr. B?" And what do you know? Here we are. Mr. B is going to Washington.
If voters do send Mr. B to Washington, Bentivolio says his first priority is improving the job market.
It's about jobs. Number one is jobs, and we have to cut taxes to create those jobs. We have to cut taxes, streamline regulations, and you know, investment is usually followed by jobs, and investment goes where it's welcome and stays where it's appreciated, and that's what we need to do in this state and in this country, is show appreciation for the right kind of investments so they can create jobs. We have to show that we're appreciated, they are appreciated, and they'll stay here. They won't go overseas.
Bentivolio wants to see tax reform. He says the current tax code is too complicated and would support lowering the federal business tax. But he says the government must simultaneously cut down on regulation.
And for any business to have to go through a pile of regulations from a government agency only to focus on specifics and then have another regional director from that agency come in and say, no, we're going to change gears and go in another direction. I want you to focus on these regulations because that's what we're looking for. You know, it costs business an awful lot of money to do that.
Bentivolio wants to take on national health care and is quick to point out that he does not support President Obama's Affordable Care Act.
These important medical decisions must be made by you and your doctor and your family, not 15 bureaucrats that want to create some kind of panel that determines the quality of the care you're going to get based on your age. I think that's terrible. In my own experience with military and VA, you don't want the government in charge of health care. You really don't.
He also raises concerns over changes to Social Security.
We have a contract with those people that are collecting Social Security, and my #1 job is to protect that and preserve it so that it's going to be used by future generations. We made a contract with these people. You can't change the contract in the middle of performance.
Bentivolio says he supports energy diversification, but only if the market wants it.
I'm very big on coal, very big on drilling, very big on solar energy, very big on other forms of energy, but the marketplace has to determine that, not some bureaucrat who thinks he's an expert. Let's let the market and let's let business determine and fill the needs that are demanded by the public, not some government bureaucrat that wants to spend taxpayer money on businesses like Solentra.
Closer to home, Bentivolio also hopes to improve relations with the people who elect him.
We have a wonderful plan to have a mobile office within the district that will go from, for instance, it might spend 2 weeks in Troy, and then it'll go to Canton, Michigan, and then back to Auburn Hills and some of our senior citizen centers to help with constituent concerns that that have been lacking in this district.
The candidate also wants to improve transparency for his constituents while he's in Washington. He says he'd post his voting record online and explain his decisions.
You may not agree with me, but you'll respect me because you'll understand that this is the reason I voted the way I did, and you'll know, and you won't have to guess.
Bentivolio says he served his country and community in many roles and is now ready for Mr. B to go to Washington.
Americans have to understand that we're all in this together, and together, by a free exchange of ideas and respecting each other's views, that we're going to come to the right answers and solutions.
I'm Smitha Kaloki for 7 Action News.